Yeah, there we go. Um, Thanks to Jessica for inviting me to do this talk. For those of you who don't know me, which is most of you, my name is Elaine and I work in the library service in the Technological University of Dublin, which will henceforth be TU Dublin. This talk will look at ableism in society and academia and how changing that will benefit many workplaces. It will do this through examining intersectionality, universal design, academia, and more. I think I'm going to start straight off and tackle academia's known elitist reputation. Many academic institutions have the reputation of being ivory towers, places that are metaphorically cut off from the world, where those who excel academically can go pursue their various interests. Except the ivory tower imagery also brings up another connotation, that of a defensive fortress that only a select few can enter. These fortresses can stand tall, strong, and stubborn in the changing world around them. Ivory is, after all, not a substance that breaks easily. And that is what needs to happen if we wish to continue to improve accessibility in society. The towers need to come down. I believe this is starting to happen at TU Dublin. Our aim is to become the most accessible university in Ireland. We have work to do, but we will get there. And accessibility does not just refer to disabled people. It refers to making academia accessible in every way to single parents, those in poverty, disabled people, people from minority ethnicities, those who work, those who can only attend distance classes, and more that I'm sure I can't think of right now. If we want to create and maintain a reputation for excellence, then we need to enable the best people to get here, and they can come from any strata of society. TU Dublin is in the unique position of being a brand new university. As an autistic member of staff, this has meant that I have had the opportunity to be involved in creating our new ability network, an informal forum for disabled staff, students, and allies to come together to discuss issues arising in the university, as well as helping to advise on its developing policies. TU Dublin's strategic plan for 2030 is using the motto of infinite possibilities. And the three pillars of that plan are people, planet, and partnership. As part of stressing the importance of all people in our community, the university aims to build a campus that supports all styles of learning and supports equality, diversity, and inclusion for all. But we don't just want our disabled staff and students to feel that they are being included just for the sake of it. We want them to feel like they belong. There is a saying by 𝗘𝗵𝗽𝗶 that I'm sure many of you know. Diversity is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Belonging, though, that's being able to be in charge of the party, to have your input respected and heard. With regards to the subject of belonging, there is a saying used throughout the disability community, and that is nothing about us without us. It is rebelling against the fact that services are usually designed by able-bodied people, often even without consulting those with disabilities. It tackles the lack of consideration for disabled people in the design of public services and spaces. Disabled people are often the last to be considered in the design of a service or space, and this can impact heavily on their ability to interact with society. There needs to be a cultural and societal change to challenge this lack of accessibility. This is where employing disabled staff can step in. When given the right support, they can help to pinpoint issues in the services that many workplaces provide. I believe that the system of universal design created by the architect 𝗘𝗵𝗽𝗶 is something that we need to look more at, both in terms of our buildings and our services. What universal design essentially does is that it encourages the design of buildings and services to be both aesthetically pleasing while being accessible to everyone, regardless of age, ability, race, sex, or gender. It takes to heart the needs of our citizens most in need of access and uses them to create the design. I suspect many of you are currently sitting there thinking you've signed up for a talk on neurodiversity in the workplace. So why are you hearing so much about disability in academia? The truth is that with the way our society is currently structured, they are heavily related. If we want our society to be truly inclusive, then neurodivergent people need to be able to reach the top in our respective workplaces. No glass ceilings for us, thanks. Realistically, many workplaces now ask for undergraduate degrees as a minimum requirement from potential staff members for entry-level jobs, and for higher up, they often require a master's or more. When our education system is so hard for so many to succeed in, are workplaces really getting the best applicants for these jobs? Just for example, disabled people can be experts by design with regards to mental health being impacted by their disabilities or by the inaccessibility of society. But most will never get the chance to contribute to a field like yours, as they will have dropped out of school or college because the system will not adapt to meet their needs. This is also a problem with regards to service design, because how can we give input if we struggle to even get into the field? In what ways can we make professions such as yours accessible to those who don't do well in the current school system? Programs like DARE are limited by funding, so maybe there need to be some projects coming from the individual professions. What and how are not questions that I have the answers to, unfortunately. Many neurodivergent people experience barriers like this throughout their everyday lives, and that is without necessarily having other intersectional identities. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, but for those who haven't, intersectionality, a concept coined by 𝗘𝗵𝗽𝗺, is also an interesting concept of relevance to service and workplace design. Intersectionality is an analytical framework for understanding how aspects of a person's social and political identities combine to create different modes of discrimination and privilege. Examples of these aspects are gender, sex, race, class, sexuality, religion, and disability. For example, there was a recent study wherein 70% of the autistic respondents were LGBTQ+. For them, this could mean that they're negatively impacted by society, both because of being autistic and because of being LGBTQ+. Universal design ties heavily into improving workplaces for intersectional people. Many believe that universal design applies only to disabled people, but that is not the case. For example, Google recently came up with a program for Google Assistant that allows it to read out online articles, which is obviously great for people who struggle with visual impairments or are blind, but it also translates them to other languages in real time. This makes online articles accessible to a much broader range of people than if a physical book would be. If you wish to test and learn more about making your online resources more accessible to your staff, Web Accessibility in Mind, known as 𝗘𝗵𝗽𝗺, is a good website to start with. You can check text accessibility, including by its color contrast checker, and is a fantastic mine of information on digital accessibility. Another good tool is Microsoft Office's own accessibility checker, found under Check Accessibility in the Review tab in many of its programs. This will perform an inspection on Word documents, PowerPoint, and Excel for accessibility-related issues and provide steps on how to solve them. In addition to these, when preparing online resources for your staff, implementing audio description and closed captioning for videos, as well as alt text for images, are relatively simple actions that improve accessibility. With so many of us currently working from home, accessibility of online resources and communication has become increasingly important. That is especially true for neurodivergent staff. I'm sure many of you know how much harder it is to have Zoom meetings all day versus in-person meetings. This is not to say that in-person meetings are easier for neurodivergent staff, as that may not be the case. But the social signals that we have learned to survive in the workplace are now either gone or much harder to read. I'm sure I'm not the only one who never knows when to hang up on an online meeting. Having a set structure for online meetings, such as finishing by a specific time, having agenda items, etc., just as you would for physical meetings, can be of great benefit to all of the attendees. Communication is not the only struggle that neurodivergent staff face when working from home, though. For many of us, our routines have been completely upended, and we are now relying more on our own ability to plan out and execute tasks. For neurodivergent staff, however, this new lack of routine and increased autonomy of work can actually be a struggle due to something known as executive dysfunction. This makes establishing our own routine and the planning out and execution of tasks quite difficult. Just to give one basic personal example, I might decide at 1 p.m. one day to go for a walk, but it might take me until 2 p.m. to actually leave the house. Not because I was busy, but because I've had to put my boots on, find my jacket, find my hat, get distracted by my phone so I misplaced the hat, find the hat again, get distracted by the dog, and then I eventually leave. Now that's fine when my task is just going for a walk. But when it's work, it's a different story. And that's without the added stresses of the pandemic. Some practical supports for neurodivergent staff can be to arrange regular check-in meetings if, as, or when they feel they need the support. These meetings would not have to be long or intrusive, but more of a checkup on what the staff member feels is working and what is not, and what can be done to change things. A variety of formats for meetings such as these is also preferred. For example, an informal chat over messages, such as via Teams or Gmail, could be better than a video chat for some staff. For that said, for many staff, working from home has been very positive, and it is something they wish to continue into the future. I'm not sure how many of you know this, but disabled people have been requesting the ability to work from home for years. But for many of us, we were told that it was not possible. Suddenly, now that business is needed, it has become possible. For that possibility to be revoked would be a disaster. Working from home often means less sensory, social, or physical stresses for disabled staff. It means no commute on public transport or by busy motorways. It means we can work on high-paying or low executive function days, as we are not having to expend a lot of energy just in getting to work. It can improve staff morale, as it shows employers are willing to be more considerate of individual staff members' needs. When the type of work is possible to do online, does it really matter where the staff member does it from? We insist on people coming into offices, and that is just generally because it's what we're used to, and it's entirely possible for staff to work from home and be supported in doing so. I'm going to end with a quote from a former boss of mine, 𝗘𝗹𝗶𝗽 from TU Dublin. When I first became a manager, I had limited professional experience in supporting colleagues with neurodiverse needs. I'm always very conscious that living and working with a disability is not my lived experience. While I could access guidance in various policy documents, guides, or research, being able to speak with and directly learn from colleagues within the neurodiverse community has been invaluable in helping me become a better manager, colleague, and ally. I am indebted to my colleagues' openness and willingness to share their experiences and help me learn how best to support them and make our workplace a better place for everybody. And that is really the key. No matter what marginalized community you are working with, find members of it to listen to, promote their voices, and better your service by doing so. Thank you all very much for listening to me.